Hello, today on my channel you will hear an amazing story about life. I hope you enjoy this story. This one struck me to the core. Honestly, I still can't forget it. Enjoy watching. Mom, Dad, are you home? Amanda asked loudly, crossing the threshold of the apartment. The girl came home in a good mood and with a smile on her face. Yes, daughter. We are in the kitchen, answered the mother. She was at this time engaged in preparing dinner. I passed, the girl said happily, going into the kitchen and seeing her parents. Good girl, we didn't doubt you, the father replied with a smile on his face. He stretched out his arms towards his daughter and showed his desire to hug her. It was the last exam, Amanda said, and allowed her father to hug her, thus expressing his joy and congratulations. Well done, your father and I congratulate you. You are one step closer to graduation, the mother added, realizing that her daughter had graduated 9th grade with honors. Ahead is a carefree summer, and I can spend it with friends, said the girl happily. She's already started planning vacations. Well, here we go. And what about me and my mom? Honest, you will find time, asked the father, jokingly, demonstratively offended, because he wanted his daughter, as in childhood, most of the time devoted to them, not friends and classmates. And you, I always in the first place, replied the girl, calming Daddy. Good. I hope you're not going anywhere tonight. We can organize a family dinner and invite Grandma to celebrate the successful passing of exams, said the mother, suggesting to celebrate the beginning of summer vacation at her daughter. No, I'm home today, especially if Grandma comes to visit us. Amanda supported her mother's idea. Refusing lunch, the girl ran to her bedroom and concentrated all her attention on the computer and did not even notice how the time passed. Meanwhile, Jimmy called his mother to invite her to a family dinner. His grandmother, who had been safely retired for several years, gladly agreed to come, provided that her son would pick her up. Having fulfilled his mother's expectations, Jimmy drove to the outskirts of town to pick up his mother and bring Amanda the grandmother she loves so much. On the way, the old lady asked her son to stop at a store, and after spending some money from her pension, she bought a cake to treat Amanda. Hello, granddaughter, said Elizabeth as she walked into her granddaughter's room. Hooray! Grandma is here. The girl shouted joyfully when she saw the old lady with a cake in her hands on the threshold of the bedroom. I congratulate you on the completion of the 9th grade. You are such a smart girl, with a smile and tears in her eyes, said the old lady, holding her granddaughter to herself. Why are you crying? Amanda asked, not realizing that these are tears of joy and happiness. I am happy that you are so mature and good, answered the grandmother, hugging the girl even tighter. All to the table, I already have everything ready, shouted Catherine, calling everyone to the kitchen. Soon the whole family gathered around the table. Glasses were filled, as well as a glass of juice for the girl. They celebrated the end of the 9th grade and the successful passing of exam. A little more, and you will be an adult? The father said sadly, remembering how he had recently taken Amanda to the 1st grade. Yes, 2 more years, and I will be able to go to university, confirmed the schoolgirl, dreaming of an adult and independent life. And where do you want to go? Grandma asked. I don't know, but I would like to go to medical school, as it is very interesting and informative, answered the girl, who loves chemistry and biology. It is not for sure. We have not decided anything, objected Ekaterina, dreaming that her daughter followed in her footsteps and became a teacher. That's it. There is still a lot of time ahead, so there is a chance to think, supported Jimmy, who believes that the future is in computers and programming. All right, I agree, Amanda replied. She decided not to think ahead and enjoyed the moment, which marked the beginning of the summer vacation, allowing her to forget about her studies for a few months. Continuing the family dinner, smoothly flowing into a tea party, The family had time to discuss plans not only for the distant future, but also the coming months. Realizing that the girl deserved a good rest, the parents decided to plan her summer vacation and start the rest with a trip out of town to the family sanatorium. Amanda wanted to go to the sea, but realizing that the family did not have enough money for this, agreed with the proposal of her parents. The next morning, Catherine and Jimmy went to work. They promised each other that they would do everything to talk to the bosses and take a vacation for the same period. Having a lot of respect and authority, they were able to get what they wanted and wrote applications for 2 weeks vacation to devote time to each other and their daughter. Upon returning home, Jimmy called several resorts and, finding suitable accommodations, booked a family room. A couple of days later, the family packed for the road. They put all their belongings and suitcases in the trunk, drove off. "Hello, I'm listening to you," Elizabeth said, answering the phone, which rang close to lunchtime. "Hello, I'm Police Captain Evan Mazarov. Do you know Jimmy, Catherine, and Amanda?" A man with a rough and unpleasantly husky voice asked formally. "Yes. This is my son's family," the old woman answered anxiously and became alert, realizing that such questions from a policeman do not bode well. "I have sad news for you. On the highway near the city, your son's car did not miss a truck, which caused a terrible accident," the policeman continued. "What about them?" Elizabeth asked sharply, jumping up from the divan. "Your son and his wife have left this world. The girl was saved, but she is in a serious condition. The ambulance took her to the Central City Hospital. I'm very sorry having heard all this." The woman, unable to sit still, began to hurriedly pack and, having finished talking to the policeman, drank some medicine to calm her heart, which was ready to jump out of her chest. Realizing that there is no public transportation in the city and the hospital is not close, Elizabeth decided to turn to a neighbor for help. She closed her apartment, called the next door. "Hello, Elizabeth. Is something wrong with you?" the neighbor asked, seeing on the doorstep an anxious woman with trembling hands. "My son, daughter-in-law, The old woman began to mumble and cry incoherently. "Calm down and tell me what happened," Evan replied, trying to calm the neighbor down. "Can you take me to the hospital?" asked the old lady, trying to pull herself together. "Yeah, sure. Wait for me downstairs. I'll be down in a couple of minutes," answered the good-natured neighbor, and closing the door, hurried to the bedroom to change his clothes and take the car keys. When he came down, he helped the grandmother to sit down and, realizing that something serious had happened, he literally took off in the direction of the Central City Hospital. The old woman continued to cry, wiping her tears with a handkerchief, and no matter how hard she tried to calm down, she could do nothing. "Would you tell me what happened?" Evan asked again, hoping it would distract the old woman. "Children were in a car accident and they're gone," she said, crying harder. "Oh, God, I'm sorry," apologized the neighbor, understanding the reason for the bitter tears of the old woman. After learning on the way to the hospital that his granddaughter had survived, Evan sped up and, breaking traffic rules several times, brought the woman to her destination. Realizing that she was a bit out of it, Evan decided to wait for her at the porch, and after parking the car, remained on duty near the hospital entrance. At the same time, Elizabeth, who was in the hospital, recognized Amanda's room and went to it. "Hello, who are you here to see?" asked a stately man in a white coat, noticing the old woman who ran past him. "Hello, I need Amanda's room," answered the grandmother, trying not to be distracted by the strange man. "I'm sorry. Who are you?" the stranger asked. "I am her grandmother," Elizabeth answered reluctantly, not wanting to continue the conversation and waste precious time. "My name is Ethan, and I'm Amanda's attending physician." "I think we have a lot to talk about," the man said in passing, which immediately stopped the grandmother trying to find her granddaughter. "How's Amanda? Is she okay?" "Let's go to the office. We need to talk to you," said Ethan without showing any emotion. "Is it serious?" the old woman asked, barely holding back her tears. "Unfortunately, yes. In the collision, the girl was trapped and her spine was injured. We have removed the swelling and are preparing her for emergency surgery, but you understand that it is too early to talk about any positive prognosis. At the moment, Amanda can't move and can't feel her legs, the doctor replied, explaining the problem. Will you help her? The woman asked, crying bitterly again. Yes, I will do my best, but there is still a lot to do with the body. She is a young and strong girl, so you have to keep your fists and believe in the best, said the doctor, trying to calm the old woman. Looking at the clock, Ethan realized that it was time to hurry to the operating room, and offering the old woman to go home, he hurried to the surgery. Elizabeth realized that she could not go home until she knew how the operation had gone, and followed the doctor and sat down on a bench near the operating room, praying that the girl would be all right. A couple of hours later, Ethan came out of the operating room. He noticed the grandmother. He realized that she'd been waiting for the results and hoped that she would be able to see her granddaughter, to be near her. I told you to go home, said the doctor, turning to the old lady. I don't want to, and I can't. I need to see Amanda, the grandmother objected sharply. I'm sorry, but it's not going to work. There was a heavy operation, and the girl is under heavy anesthesia, so she will wake up only closer to morning. Go home and rest, and tomorrow visit her after you're around. Tell me how she's doing. Is she okay? The operation was successful, but we need to wait for the results and see if there are positive dynamics. Having heard this, the old lady calmed down a little and, listening to the doctor's words, decided to go home. Coming out of the hospital, Elizaveta was surprised to see her neighbor on the bench near the entrance, who'd been waiting for her all this time. Are you still here? The woman asked in surprise. Yes, I saw that you were very worried and decided to wait to take you home. How are things going at the hospital? Do you need any more help? Evan asked the neighbor. He had known Elizabeth since he was a baby, for she had looked after him many times while his parents were at work and had always been kind to Evan. Now he was a 35-year-old man, living alone in his parents' apartment, who understood what it meant to lose loved ones and how much it hurt. I don't feel comfortable asking you to do this, and you have the right to refuse. But could you help me with the funeral? Elizabeth asked, realizing that she could not cope with the burden. Yes, of course, I will do my best, Evan agreed. He kept his word, took care of the organizational issues, allowed the old woman to give her time to her granddaughter, who was in the hospital. A couple weeks passed. All this time, the grandmother tried not to leave Amanda's bedside, trying to distract her from the memories of that terrible accident. Realizing that the girl was an adult and the truth could not be hidden, the old woman chose the right words and told her granddaughter that her parents had gone to the other world. Amanda could not hold back her tears and cried all the time. Only her grandmother managed to calm her down and distract her, because she was always talking to her granddaughter, spoiling her with home-cooked food and attention. On one of these days, on her way home, the old lady met the girl's doctor in the corridor, and he invited her to his office to talk to her face to face. I have to admit that Amanda pleasantly pleased me. Her body is fighting back, and the swelling has gone down faster than expected, the doctor said. So she'll be able to walk? Elizabeth asked with hope in her voice. It's not that simple. Your granddaughter has a very serious injury that has some complications. The swelling has gone down, but now it is necessary to go through a rehabilitation period, after which we will be able to draw any conclusions, Ethan answered. He explained that the treatment of such injuries is a complex and long process that requires constant supervision by professionals. Being under the constant supervision of doctors, Amanda continued her life and treatment in the hospital. Thus 6 months passed, during which the rehabilitologist appointed by the attending doctor began to deal with the girl. A course of massages and various physical procedures were carried out in full, but unfortunately, it did not give the expected result. Realizing that another surgery was required, the doctor met the girl's grandmother and told her that a surgical intervention was required, which would not be free of charge. Having learned the amount needed, the old lady who had entered the inheritance, promised to find the money as soon as possible. Having put her son's apartment up for sale, Elizabeth formalized the deal. She paid for her granddaughter's surgery and hid the rest of the money, realizing that it could come in handy for Amanda's future treatment and recovery. "Hello, Amanda, how are you?" Grandmother asked. She visited her granddaughter shortly before the operation. "Hi, Grandma, can't you see? I'm bedridden and can't do anything," the girl replied sadly, realizing the state she was in. "Don't worry. The main thing is that you stayed alive. We'll fix everything and put you back on your feet." "How?" "We don't have that kind of money to pay for expensive treatment. I'm doomed," Amanda continued, not believing that she would get better. "Don't be silly. You know that I love you, and I will do everything in my power," replied the grandmother, trying to support and reassure her granddaughter. "I do not want to hear anything. Go away," flared up the girl, feeling depressed. Soon there was a second operation, after which it took another month for the girl to spend under the close supervision of doctors. Visiting her granddaughter once again, the grandmother decided to stop by the doctor's office to talk to him and ask if she could take Amanda home. "Hello, Ethan. Can I see you?" "Hello. Yeah, come on in. Can I ask about Amanda's condition? Can she be taken home?" the old lady asked. "In principle, yes, since the girl has completed the rehabilitation course and now she doesn't need constant monitoring. I will visit her at home and will be able to monitor her progress. Unfortunately, both surgeries failed and she is still bedridden, but I have no doubt that this is temporary and we will be able to get her back on her feet," the doctor replied optimistically, even though he realized that Amanda's case was more complicated than usual. "Thank you. I'll call someone to help me with my granddaughter." "No need. I will assign you an ambulance so that the medical staff can help you transfer Amanda home," Ethan replied. He made a phone call and gave the appropriate order. "Thank you so much again. If it's all right, I'll stop by my granddaughter's room for a few minutes to let her know she's coming home." The old lady answered and left the doctor's office and went to Amanda's room. "What is it this time?" the girl asked with a chill in her voice when she saw her grandmother on the doorstep. "I have good news for you," the old woman replied. "What is it?" "Have you decided to leave me here and you won't come here anymore?" Amanda asked doomedly, unable to cope psychologically with what had happened. "No, I'm taking you home. The doctor has authorized it," Elizabeth replied with a smile, hoping that at least this news would cheer up her granddaughter. Probably realized that he cannot do anything else and decided not to ruin his reputation. "Don't say that. Ethan did everything possible, and you will definitely recover. Just need more time." "Yeah, and money, which we don't have. Stop thinking about it. You need to be patient and everything will be fine," the old woman said, trying to cheer up the girl. After the conversation, the medical staff helped to take the girl home. Amanda was surprised that her grandmother took her into her apartment, but quickly realized where the old lady had gotten the money for her surgery. Remaining in a constant state of depression, Amanda did not want to communicate with her grandmother and continued to shut herself in more and more. Worried about her granddaughter's condition, Elizabeth does her best to distract the girl from what has happened, but she does nothing. A couple of days later, the doorbell rings, and the grandmother, leaving Amanda alone, runs to see who has come. "Amanda, your classmates have come to visit you. They want to see you and are very concerned about what happened," Grandma said as she returned to her paralyzed granddaughter's bedroom. "You don't need to let them in the house. I don't want to see anyone," Amanda replied sharply. "Why not? They are your classmates and friends. I'll cook something delicious and you two can talk about school." I said no. I don't want to be seen like this. If you love me, don't let them in the apartment. Okay, fine, the old lady replied in a wan voice and went back into the hallway to talk to the children and apologize, explaining everything to Amanda's poor health. In the evening, as soon as the girl fell asleep, the grandmother quietly went into the kitchen and, sitting on a chair by the window, began to think about how to live on, realizing that her pension will not be enough, and to spend the savings from the sold apartment she has no right. The old lady realized that she would need some kind of part-time work. Forbidding herself to touch the savings Amanda needed, Elizabeth cried bitterly and worried and could not sleep. Trying not to panic, she went to the market in the morning to buy fresh fruits and vegetables for her granddaughter. After paying, the grandmother noticed that there was less and less money in her purse, and Amanda needed to eat well because she needed vitamins. "Hello, Elizabeth," greeted the old lady by a neighbor who came out of the entrance. "Hello, Evan," the sad grandmother mumbled softly and continued toward the front door. "Did something else happen to you?" the man asked, noticing the old woman's face swollen with tears. "I don't think so, but it's hard," Elizabeth replied. "Maybe you can tell me. I'm sorry if I'm prying, but you know I'm always happy to help you if I can," the good-natured neighbor replied. "I took Amanda home, but I never saw a smile on her face. She is having a very hard time processing what happened and has become depressed. I would like to find a psychologist, but I hardly have enough money for food, as it is almost impossible to live on a pension for 2 people," she said, sharing her worries. "Don't hang your head. I will definitely think of something. I'm sorry, but I have to go to work, and in the evening we'll meet and talk," Evan answered. He put his arm around her shoulders and hurried to work. On the way to the restaurant, Evan did not let the conversation with Elizabeth out of his mind for a second, because he loved this good-natured old woman who had paid a lot of attention to him in his childhood. Realizing that he needed to help her, Evan decided to talk to the owner of the restaurant, and if he could, to solve Elizabeth's financial problem by getting her a job. As he began his job duties as a receptionist, Evan resolved a couple conflicts and treated all customers with consideration, regardless of their character, behavior, or the amount on the bill. Noticing an expensive SUV pulling up to the restaurant, Evan stepped outside to greet his boss. "Good morning, Alexander. I didn't expect you to arrive so early." "Hello, Evan. I need to pick up some papers, and then I'll go on with my business," answered a stately man of about 50 in an expensive suit, dazzling in its beauty. "I see, but do you have a few minutes to discuss a personnel matter?" Evan asked, hoping that he would be able to find a job for his neighbor. "Yes, just make it quick and on your way to the office," the restaurant owner replied and headed inside. "Okay, it won't take long," agreed the administrator, following the boss. "So, what did you want to talk about?" "As you may recall, we've been unable to find a cleaning lady for months now. Young people do not respond to the vacancy, and if they come, they do not know which side of the mop to approach." "Well, that's to be expected. What do you suggest?" "I know an old lady who really needs a job. I can vouch for her because she's a very good and decent woman. Besides, she's in a difficult situation, and I'd like to help her, of course." "If you'll let me," Evan said, trying not to let a stranger in on all of Elizabeth's problems. "Okay, that's fine with me. If you know the man and can vouch for him, that's more than enough for me," Alexander replied, not used to dealing with personnel issues. "Thank you very much." "I'm sure you won't regret it," Evan thanked his superior and returned to the hall to continue his work. In the evening, Evan decided to talk to Elizabeth on his way home from work, telling her the good news. After going up to his floor, the man called the apartment across the hall and greeted his neighbor. "Hello again, Elizabeth. Sorry to be so late, but do you have a minute to talk?" "Hello, Evan." "Yes, of course," replied the neighbor, and went out to the stairwell and closed the door to the apartment so as not to disturb her granddaughter. "I have good news for you. I found you a job." "How? Why?" "I can't work all day because I can't leave Amanda unattended for long," the old lady replied, a little disappointed and confused. "Don't worry. I've taken those points into consideration. You will have a part-time job and you can work at your convenience. The owner of the restaurant is hardly ever in the establishment, which means that I will be your boss, so everything will be fine. Besides, I can let you go home at any time if you ask for it. The restaurant is a 10-minute walk away, so Amanda will always be under your control," Evan replied, explaining the ins and outs. "Thank you so much. What would I do without you?" cried with joy the old lady, hugging her neighbor. "Don't thank me. You have done so much good for me that I am always happy to help you," replied Evan, and without taking more time from Elizabeth, went to his home. The next morning, the grandmother, realizing that she had to go to work, made breakfast and, waking Amanda, told her that she would be working as a cleaner at a restaurant nearby. Realizing that the girl could not stay alone for long, the old woman promised to come every 2 hours, and having dragged a nightstand into Amanda's room, put everything she needed on it, from candy bars and cookies to an extra blanket so that the girl could cover herself if she got cold. Despite her ongoing depression, Amanda smiled for the first time as she joyfully accepted the event and realized that her grandmother would not fuss with her like a small child and would give her free time and space, which was very precious to her. Realizing that on the first day it was better to come early, the old lady hurried to the restaurant. "Hello, Evan. I hope I'm not too late," Elizabeth asked, approaching the receptionist. "Good morning. You don't have a fixed schedule, so you can't be late in principle. If it's not too much trouble for you, please address me Evan in the restaurant, because I am your boss and others should not know that we are neighbors." "Okay, I'll keep it in mind," agreed the old lady, realizing that the chain of command must be present. "Let me introduce you to the staff and then show you your workplace," said the administrator, and having gone with the old lady to the kitchen, began the process of acquaintance. "Hello, my name is Elizabeth. I will work for you as a cleaner," modestly said the old woman, having found herself in the kitchen. "Good morning. I am very glad to meet you. I am sure that with your help, we will be not only delicious, but also very clean," good-naturedly greeted the old lady chef, who understands how important the work of women in the kitchen. "We're cooking non-stop and in large quantities." "I'm also very pleased to meet you," Elizabeth replied, noting that the chef is a very nice and attentive person. "Hello, and my name is Leslie," answered the waitress, and, having got acquainted with the old lady, hurried into the hall to give the order. In general, the acquaintance was easy and relaxed, as the staff was small, but very cordial. Realizing that she was warmly welcomed, Elizabeth went to the back room, where she found all the necessary tools for work. A little calmed down, and realizing that she would easily work with such wonderful people, the old lady began her work. After working for a couple of hours, Elizabeth asked the administrator to go home. Having done so several times, she checked on her granddaughter, and having made sure that she did not need her help and constant presence, returned to work. Toward evening, Elizabeth returns home and decides to buy a small cake on the way to celebrate her first day of work and try to lift Amanda's spirits. "Elizabeth, can I talk to you for a moment?" a woman called out to her. "Oh, Louise, it's you." Turning around, the old woman recognized her granddaughter's class teacher. "I'm sorry if I'm distracting you, but won't you give me a few minutes?" the teacher asked politely. "Yes, of course. If you don't mind, let's sit down on the bench, just to rest our legs a little," agreed the old lady, tired after the first day of work in 10 years. "I know about what happened to Amanda. It's a real disaster, and I realize that this kind of thing hits children very hard. I care about Amanda as she is my best student, and it would be a great shame if she is unable to get an education because of her illness." "Yes, I agree with you. What can we do about it?" Elizabeth asked. "How would you feel about me visiting Amanda at home? I could borrow assignments from the other teachers and bring them to Amanda, and then I could pick up the finished work and bring it back to her to be checked and graded." "That's very kind of you, but I don't feel comfortable," the old woman replied, realizing that it was a lot of work. "Don't worry, it's no trouble at all, because I really want to help Amanda. It's selfless if you're worried about money," Louise replied. "I am very pleased with your consideration and desire to help. I don't feel comfortable making things difficult for you, but I would also like Amanda to get an education and finish school." "I am very grateful for your support and help," the old lady replied, agreeing to her class teacher's proposal. Back home, the grandmother told her granddaughter not only about her first day at work, but also about her meeting with the teacher. Despite her depressive state, Amanda smiled for the first time because she was very nice to Louise and gladly accepted the news that she would come and study with her. In addition, Amanda was happy that she could at least partially return to her usual life, where she was not only pitied, but also demanded something. In the morning, the doctor visited the girl again to examine her and check her condition. "How is Amanda? Are there any positive changes?" the old woman asked, waiting for the doctor in the kitchen and making 2 cups of tea. "Yes, she is recovering well from the operation, but not well enough, as I expected better progress. As I see it, she needs a professional course of massage and the services of a chiropractor. If you want, I have an acquaintance and I can leave you his number. But I must warn you that the treatments are not free," Ethan replied. "Give me the number and I will call him back. I recently got a job, so I have money, especially for my granddaughter." Elizabeth replied, and after seeing the doctor, decided to call the number left by him. "Good afternoon. Ethan said that you are an excellent chiropractor, and I can arrange with you a series of massages for my granddaughter." "Hello. What's wrong with your granddaughter?" the man inquired, determined to determine the scope of work. "She survived a car accident and is bedridden," the old lady replied. "In that case, I can offer not only massage, but also acupuncture." "Yes, I'll do anything. Just help my granddaughter." "Okay, give me the address. I will come to you tomorrow," replied the chiropractor, who was unable to refuse people calling from Itan Vladimirovich. The next morning, the doctor came and conducted the first session. The grandmother, watching the procedures, prayed that they would help her granddaughter and looked at the chiropractor with hope. Having done everything necessary, the man said nothing, warning that it was a long process that could take several months. As soon as he left, Amanda's class teacher appeared on the doorstep of the apartment, having prepared her first assignments for her. After greeting the teacher, Elizabeth led her to the girl and asked her to stay a little longer, as she was in a hurry to work and would be glad to have Amanda under her supervision. The teacher agreed because she wanted not only to give out homework, but also to talk to her favorite student. "Hello, Amanda. How are you feeling?" Louise asked, entering the girl's bedroom. "Hello. As you can see, not so far," Amanda replied in a slightly sad voice. "I hope you don't mind that I decided to visit you." "No, not at all. I'm very glad you came. It's a good thing." "Did Grandma warn you about us being homeschooled?" "I brought the first homework assignments. If you want, I can help you with them," answered the class teacher. "Yes, Grandma warned me about that. Excuse me, but I want to try to solve everything myself, as it is important for me to check my knowledge and catch up on the program missed for the time that I was in the hospital," replied the girl, refusing additional help. "Good. I didn't doubt you," Louisa replied, realizing that studying would allow the girl to take her mind off her problems and concentrate on finishing school. As the weeks passed, Amanda gradually adapted to the learning process and plunged headlong into her homework, allowing her depression to recede into the background. Chiropractor continued to visit the girl, and soon, thanks to acupuncture, she was showing the first signs of sensitivity in her legs, which only encouraged her and gave her hope that she would be able to get back on her feet. After paying for the first sessions of the chiropractor, the grandmother realized that his services cost a bit more than she expected. At the same time, she noticed positive dynamics and simply could not refuse the specialist's services. Having received her salary and pension, the old lady paid for utilities and chiropractor sessions. After calculating how much money she had left, Elizaveta was upset, realizing that money was catastrophically lacking. Trying not to think about it, the woman went to a restaurant to focus on work. After cleaning up the room and kitchen, she returned to her den and, after talking to the chiropractor on the phone, learned that he was offering to double the number of sessions. Elizabeth is unable to refuse, but realizes that this will hit her already strained wallet even harder. After talking to the specialist, the old woman could not hold back her tears and cried, I'm sorry if I'm meddling in your business, but I heard you crying and couldn't pass by," said the chef politely when he heard the old woman crying and looked into her room. "Hello, Tom." "It's all right. I'm sorry you have to see my tears," replied the old woman, wiping the tears from her face. "You have nothing to apologize for. Tell me what's wrong. Is there anything I can do to help? I'm not sure anyone cares about other people's problems." "You shouldn't think so. We are like a family here, so you can always talk, and I promise I will support you in any way I can," replied the polite man, giving the old lady a handkerchief to wipe away her tears and calm down a bit. "You see, my granddaughter is in a very serious condition after the accident and is bedridden. The doctor recommended a chiropractor, and he really helps, but his services are very expensive, and I don't have enough money to live on," Elizabeth said, barely holding back her tears. "I think I can help you. You just listen to me and don't refuse right away." "Okay," agreed the old woman. "I can help with groceries so that you do not spend on the supermarket and the market. We always have leftover food, and our guests are picky, often leave dishes untouched. The owner doesn't keep an eye on it, and some of the products are constantly written off. If you want, you can take away all these products and dishes, which will significantly reduce costs," said Tom, offering a way out of a difficult financial situation. "I can't do that. It's not right," replied the old lady, as she was too embarrassed to pick up leftovers from the tables. "Don't make it up and go along with it. Believe me, no one will notice it, and I will not tell anyone, and it will be our little secret," replied the good-natured man, insisting on his own. Elizabeth wanted to refuse, but realizing that she had no choice and it was the only option to save money, she agreed. As she began to pick up the scraps from the table and take away the food, the woman noticed that it solved her financial difficulties. Moreover, by taking the food home, she was finally able to treat her granddaughter to something tasty. Such products as fish, meat, and exotic fruits have long been unaffordable for Elizaveta, but now she can please the girl, which only positively affects her mood and well-being. A few more months passed, and the chiropractor finished another session, reported that the course came to an end, and this was their last meeting. He had done everything he could and hoped that it would have a positive effect on the girl and her well-being. Realizing that the course was over, the old lady called her granddaughter's doctor and invited him to visit her so that the man could check Amanda's condition again and determine if there were any positive dynamics. The next morning, Ethan visited Amanda and made sure that she was a little better, but there was still a lot of work to be done. In addition, he will have to undergo a second examination in a few months, which will allow him to draw some conclusions and determine the further course of treatment. After a few months, Ethan again prescribes a course of massages in order to maintain the positive dynamics. At the same time, he realizes that another operation is inevitable and warns Elizabeth about it. The doctor notes that it will be very expensive and complicated. Besides, only specialists from the capital can perform such an operation, because there are no doctors with such qualifications here, and the clinic has no suitable equipment. "Hello, Amanda. Can I come to you?" the teacher asked, visiting her favorite student again. "Hello, Louise." "Yes, of course. I've done everything," replied Amanda, and reached for the finished test papers and handed them to the class teacher. "You did well. I had no doubts about you. By the way, I hasten to inform you that final exams are approaching. Given the current situation, you do not need to take them. Teachers will go to the meeting and give you grades on the results of these tests. If you don't mind, I would be glad to continue visiting you, but not as a class teacher, but as an ordinary guest." "Of course, I'm always happy to see you," Amanda replied with a smile on her face. After a little more talking, the teacher took the completed tests and returned the next day to tell her that the girl had done brilliantly. A couple of weeks later, Louise visits Amanda again and congratulates her on her brilliant graduation. Despite the difficulties and illness, she has finished 11 grades with honors and can be proud of herself. After hearing about this event, the grandmother invited the teacher to dinner and thanked her for all her work and the time she had given to her granddaughter, because it was only thanks to her attention and efforts that this was possible. Thank you so much. If it wasn't for you, I don't know how Amanda would have continued her studies. Don't mention it. I didn't do anything special. Amanda is a great student and she's doing a great job of handling everything on her own. Thank you, but you really have done a lot for me. Amanda supported the conversation by thanking Louise once again. The next morning, Grandma gets ready for work again. Waking up at 6 in the morning, Elizabeth retires to the kitchen to prepare breakfast for her granddaughter and get everything done before she leaves. After waking Amanda and feeding her, the caring old lady leaves her food and gives her a laptop so that the girl can watch a movie and somehow distract herself during her absence. Noticing that it was already time to leave, Elizabeth kissed Amanda and hurried to the restaurant. After a little work, she decided to rest in the den when Evan knocked on the door. "Hello? How are you?" the restaurant manager asked. "Hi, Evan." "Good. I'm just taking a little vacation. Join us. We are just about to have tea while there are practically no customers," said Evan, inviting the old lady to the kitchen. "Okay, I'll be right there," Elizabeth answered and followed the man. After drinking tea and chatting, the grandmother told her colleagues that her granddaughter had graduated from school with honors. Everyone congratulated her, realizing how difficult it had been, given Amanda's injury. Soon everyone went about their business, and the woman was left alone with the chef. "Is it just me, or are you looking a little sad?" Tom asked. "No, I'm not. I'd like to treat or surprise Amanda in some way, but there's no money for a gift, and I don't know what to do about it." "I understand. Of course, I don't have a gift, but I can help you out." "No need. You do so much for me already," the old woman replied, not wanting to take advantage of the chef's kindness. "Still, I will be glad to help because it is important that Amanda gets positive emotions." "I will now prepare a festive dinner for her," Tom replied, and taking a bag, began to collect containers with several prepared dishes in it. "Thank you very much. You are very kind to us." With tears in her eyes, replied Elizabeth, who was moved by the situation. "Don't thank me. Everyone in my place would do the same," replied the chef, embracing and comforting the elderly cleaning lady. After continuing her work, the old lady went out into the hall a few more times to make it clean and tidy. Noticing that the shift had come to an end, Elizabeth went to the dressing room and, having changed her clothes, took the package left by Tom. Upon returning home, the old lady set the table in Amanda's bedroom, surprising her with a variety of expensive restaurant meals. The girl knew about her grandmother's groceries, but she was still surprised, for they had never had such a feast. "What is it?" she asked in surprise. "The chief, having learned that you graduated from high school with honors, decided to prepare a special surprise for you," answered the grandmother, continuing to take out containers of food from the bag. "Why so much?" "I feel uncomfortable," the granddaughter replied, embarrassed. "Don't worry. I didn't steal it. Especially, I really wanted to congratulate you on graduating from school. You are a great girl, and I am sure that this is just the beginning of your great journey," replied Elizabeth, congratulating the girl on the successful completion of school life. "Yes, but what's the point?" Amanda asked in a frustrated voice. "What's the point?" "School was the first but very important and responsible stage. You have to go to university, you have to work. What study? What work? If I'm bedridden, I would like to study further and dream of becoming a doctor. But I realize that I do not have such an opportunity, neither financially nor physically. Don't be discouraged. We'll get through this. You will definitely recover, get back on your feet, and make up for lost time. Now you need to wait a little, but you need to believe in the best," replied the grandmother, trying to support her granddaughter. "You can see that nothing helps me," Amanda replied, even sadder. "Well, don't you dare get upset, and don't make me sad." "Everything will work out," Elizabeth insisted, not doubting that she would be able to get her granddaughter back on her feet, no matter what it cost her. As she continued to work hard, The old woman saved every penny, trying to put something aside for Amanda's further treatment and rehabilitation. Saving money, the woman continued to take food from the restaurant. She was extremely uncomfortable and embarrassed to do it, but the chef asks her not to think about it because they have a good purpose, which justifies their actions. In addition, the girl needs to eat well and properly because it directly affects her health and mood. A few days later, closer to the evening, Alexander came to the restaurant to have dinner and communicate with an old friend. At some point, the friend decided to go out on the porch to talk on the phone and have a smoke. At this time, the restaurant owner noticed an old cleaning lady picking up a plate of leftovers from the table, left by a couple with an unhealthy child who had only picked at the plate a little. Noticing that his grandmother had pulled a bag out of her robe and transferred the leftover food into it, Alexander wanted to go over to her and talk. Numbed by what he saw, the man got up from the table, deciding to find out why she was doing this. But just at that moment, his friend returned. Deciding to postpone the conversation until tomorrow, the restaurant owner sat back down, focusing on communicating with his old friend. The next morning, Alexander arrived at the restaurant much earlier than usual and went to his office. A few minutes later, he called the receptionist to him. Evan knocked on the office door, entered, noticed that the man was anxious and a little nervous, as if something had happened. Afraid to start a conversation, the administrator came a little closer to the desk and waited silently, anticipating the beginning of the dialogue. "Evan, tell me, what's going on in the restaurant?" Alexander asked. "What are you talking about?" Evan asked with incomprehension. "I mean what I witnessed last night. I came to sit with a friend, and suddenly I noticed that the cleaning lady at the next table was picking up leftovers and putting them in a bag. What do you call that?" "I do not know. I did not see it," replied the administrator. "But you should, because you're my restaurant administrator and must know about everything that happens within its walls. Is it by any chance not the cleaning lady for whom you vouched?" Decided to clarify the restaurant owner. "Yes, she is," Evan answered, lowering his head as he felt embarrassed. "I'm sorry, but I don't like our employees taking food from the table. What's more, I'm not sure if she's stealing anything from the kitchen." "Choose the right words. Do it delicately, but don't let this woman in my restaurant anymore," Alexander said, thinking that Elizabeth was some beggar thief trying to steal from his restaurant. "I'm sorry, but I don't want to, and I can't do that. Elizabeth is not just my neighbor, but a wonderful, sensitive, and caring person," Evan replied, realizing that his conscience would not allow him to fire her. "Well, in that case, I'll do it myself," the restaurant owner replied, getting even more indignant. "You have every right to do so, but first listen to me. Elizabeth is a very honest person and would never take someone else's money. If you witnessed her picking up scraps from the table, it was only because she doesn't have enough money to provide for her granddaughter. The girl survived a terrible car accident and lost her parents, becoming an orphan. Elizabeth is the only close person she has. The girl is bedridden and needs constant medical treatment. So I'm not surprised that the old lady doesn't have enough money for all of this. You can do as you see fit, but I would like you to know the reasons for this. I just wanted to help her because I have lived next door to Elizabeth all my life, and she has helped me many times. She was always looking after me while I was little, and I couldn't help her," Evan answered, telling about the situation in the old lady's life. "Okay, I understand you. Go to your workplace," Alexander said with difficulty. Left alone in the office, the man almost let a tear fall, as this story touched him very much and touched his heart. Opening the window and taking out a cigarette, the restaurant owner smoked, plunging headlong into memories. Alexander remembered the time when many years ago he was not only a caring father, but also a happy husband, loving his wife. As a result of an accident, the restaurant owner's wife was involved in an accident and he was left alone with his son. It was a difficult period that left painful scars in his life. The first years were extremely difficult for Alexander because he was left alone with a child who needed constant attention, care, and love. A couple of hours he sat in the office and thought about the situation. The man realized that he had no right to dismiss the old lady. Moreover, he was obliged to talk to her. Going to the commode, he knocked on the door. but it turned out to be locked. When he came out into the hall and saw Evan, the man summoned him to find out where Elizabeth was. As it turned out, Evan had let the old lady go home because she had excused herself to be with her granddaughter and to meet the doctor who regularly visited Amanda to monitor her health and physical condition. "And when will she be at the workplace?" Alexander asked. "We can't expect her today, so not before tomorrow morning." "Have you decided to fire her?" Evan asked in a low voice. "No, I just need to talk to her," the restaurant owner replied, calming the manager down. "That's good, that's a wise decision," Evan cheerfully supported the boss. "Yes, but I need to talk to her, and as soon as possible." "You said she's your neighbor, right?" "Yeah, we share a stairwell." After getting the old lady's home address, Alexander went to the kitchen and took a large bag and threw some fruit into it so that he could go to the house not empty-handed. Once near the desired entrance, the man stopped and, pausing for a smoke break, once again considered the upcoming conversation with the old woman. Having decided that he was doing the right thing, the restaurant owner went to visit Elizaveta. Hearing the doorbell, the old woman hurried into the hallway and was dumbfounded, not expecting to see the owner of the restaurant in front of her. "Hello, what are you doing here?" the woman asked in surprise. "Hello, Elizabeth. I think we need to talk," Alexander replied. "Well, come into the kitchen," politely replied the old woman, inviting the guests into the house. "Where can I put the bag?" "You can put it here on the shelf." "Do you want tea?" "Yes, with pleasure." "You'll excuse me, but yesterday I witnessed how you collected scraps from the table. Putting them in a bag," Alexander began the conversation. "I'm sorry. It will not happen again," guiltily replied Elizabeth, who became very ashamed. "Don't worry. I talked to Evan, and he told me everything. I know about your son and his wife and about your granddaughter's trauma, so I understand. 15 years ago, my family experienced a similar tragedy that left me a widower with a young son in my arms. It was a difficult time, but I managed to get through it, so I'm not here to reproach you, but to help you. I sympathize with you. It must have been very hard to raise your son alone," sadly replied the old woman, realizing that the restaurant owner had experienced no less tragedy. "Yes, but fortunately, it is in the distant past. Now he is very promising and happy with his achievements. Still, is there anything I can do for your granddaughter?" "I don't think so. I am doing everything necessary for her to recover and get back on her feet so she doesn't need any additional help. She gets visits from doctors, massage therapists, and other specialists, and the rest is in God's hands." "Well, I hope everything works out for you. Excuse me for such an impudent request, but can I meet and talk to your granddaughter?" Alexander asked. "One moment, I need to ask Amanda about it," answered the old woman, and leaving the man for a few moments, went into the bedroom to her granddaughter. After talking to the girl and getting her consent, the woman returned to the kitchen and invited Alexander into Amanda's room. "Hello, Amanda." "Very glad to meet you. My name is Alexander," said the man, seeing the charming, with a radiant smile, girl bedridden. "Hello. I'm glad to meet you too. You're the first stranger in recent years who came to visit me, not to treat me," Amanda replied, glad that she could talk to someone other than her grandmother. "How are you feeling?" "I've been better, but Grandma makes me believe it's all temporary." Elizabeth's right. There are a lot of good specialists who can help you, so I'm sure Grandma is absolutely right. "Yes, but only these specialists need money, and we have almost no money," Amanda answered a little sadly. "Don't worry. Money is not the most important thing in life. Besides, it won't help if you don't have faith, so don't doubt the bright future, and it will come." "Well, I will definitely listen to your advice." Continuing to communicate with Amanda, Alexander remained under a pleasant impression, because the girl was not only very gentle, sweet, and beautiful, but also interesting and educated. Realizing that it was already quite late, the restaurant owner apologized for taking up so much of their time and left for his home. Trying to sleep, he was unable to do so as thoughts of Amanda and the desire to help her kept him from relaxing. Having smoked almost a pack of cigarettes during the night, the man couldn't think of anything sensible and realized that the only solution was to call his son. "Hey, John, how are you? How's the weather in the capital?" "Hi, Dad. I'm fine, you know. I'm in the hospital all day, so I don't follow the weather. Are you on business or just miss me?" The guy answered, distracted from his work for a few minutes. "Missed me, of course. When are you coming? I've forgotten the last time you visited your father. I'm a little busy with work right now. Plus, I'm writing my doctoral dissertation and I can't tear myself apart. Why don't I turn in some work to my supervisor in a couple weeks and come see you first thing, okay?" "Yeah, great. I'll be waiting for you." "Sorry for distracting you," my father replied, and ended the conversation, realizing that John was very busy. After hanging up the phone, Alexander thought about how much he missed his son, with whom they had not seen as often as he would have liked in recent years. Despite this, the man is genuinely happy for John and proud of him, because his son has been living in the capital for several years and has studied to be a surgeon. Now he is interning at the famous luminary of medicine, Dr. Melvin. Remembering this well, Alexander wanted to ask his son if he could talk to his supervisor, but realized that it would be better to ask about it in person, as it was not customary to discuss such things over the phone. A couple of weeks later, John, having kept his word, arrives in his hometown, and the first thing he does is to go to his father's restaurant, and finding himself in front of the door to his office, knocks before entering. "Yes, who's there?" I heard my father's voice. "Hello, I'm here on business," John replied, deciding to make a joke. "Oh, son. Hi, it's so good to see you. Why didn't you tell me you were coming?" "I would have met you at the station," the father replied happily, hugging his son tightly. "I'm not a little boy. I can get there myself. Are you hungry?" "Maybe let's eat," Alexander asked, despite the age of his son continuing to treat him as a small child who needs care and attention. "And here you got right to the point. I will not refuse from food," said John, living in the capital on food that does not require special efforts in preparation. Going out into the hall and calling the administrator, the owner of the restaurant ordered to set the table and prepare all the meat dishes on their menu in a few minutes. "How is it going with the thesis? Everything is working out?" asked the father, sitting down with his son at the table. "Yes, it's going well. Melvin is not only a good doctor but also a great teacher, so he always tells me how to do things," John replied. And when he saw the first dish in front of him, he pounced on it as if he hadn't eaten for days or even weeks. Having talked a little more during dinner, father and son discussed all the topics that interested them, and without noticing how a few hours passed, went home. In the evening, Alexander again cannot sleep, and deciding not to wake up his son, went to the kitchen to smoke and at least a little relaxation. Hearing the noise, John also went to the kitchen. He turned on the light, saw his father sitting at the open window. "You said you quit," the son said disappointedly, realizing that his father had deceived him and continued to ruin his health. "Well, I'm sorry. I'm honestly trying. But so far it does not work. Besides, thoughts do not let me sleep," replied the father, apologizing for his bad habit. "What's the matter?" "What are you thinking about?" John asked, noticing that his father was visibly nervous. "I have a personal conversation with you, but I do not know how and where best to begin." "Start with the main thing, and then we'll figure it out," replied the son, who was used to solving all problems at once, not putting them off. "I have a cleaner who works in the restaurant, whose family had an accident that left her granddaughter an orphan. The girl severely injured her spine and was left paralyzed. From what I understand from my dialogue with the grandmother, they have had several surgeries and the girl has even been rehabilitated, but is still bedridden. I realize this is uncomfortable, but I would like you to talk to Melvin about her and see if he can advise her or tell her where to go for treatment. I'd like to help that girl and get her back on her feet. I didn't expect you to think and worry about someone like that. Did you think I was a dry, stale man? I just understand perfectly well what it means to survive a car accident and how difficult it is to cope with its consequences, Alexander replied in a low voice, remembering his late wife. I understand you, Father. Can you introduce me to this girl? I need to talk to her, John replied, agreeing to help his father in any way he could. After a little talking and calming down, Alexander went back to his bedroom and fell asleep safely. Waking up early in the morning, the man drank a cup of coffee and, deciding not to wake his son, went to work. After waiting for the cleaning lady to appear, the restaurant owner invited her to his office to talk and tell her that his son, who had graduated from medical university and was interning in the capital, had returned to the city. Elizabeth agreed to have Alexander and his son visit Amanda, but realized that her granddaughter might be against it, so she decided to call her first. Hello, Amanda. How are you feeling? The grandmother asked as she stepped out of the supervisor's office to call her granddaughter. Hi, Grandma. I'm fine. I'm watching a movie. And before that, I read a useful biology paper. Why are you calling? I thought you had work to do, asked the girl, not expecting a call from her grandmother at such a time. Alexander wants to visit us again, but not alone, but with his son. How do you feel about it? Elizabeth asked. Well, he is a very nice and sweet man, so I will be happy to communicate, Amanda replied, giving her consent for them to have guests. I talked to my granddaughter. She will be happy to see you, said the cleaning lady to the restaurant owner, returning to his office. Great. Then I dare not delay you. Continue working, and closer to lunch we will go. A few hours later, Alexander took the old lady from work and decided to give her a ride. On the way, he stopped by his house to pick up his son. Once home, Elizabeth headed to the kitchen to prepare tea and treats for the guests. Meanwhile, Alexander and John headed to Amanda's room to chat with her. Hello, my name is John. I'm Alexander's son. Hello. And my name is Amanda, the girl replied, looking intently at the tall young man with bright sky blue eyes and small freckles on his nose. How are you feeling? Are you worried about back pain? Are there tingles in your toes or not? John began to ask, trying to find out the girl's physical condition. It's okay. The pains are practically not bothering me, but the tingling is there and sometimes quite strong. Amanda answered all the question. That's good. It means that the sensitivity is present, and there is still something that can be done, John muttered under his breath. Why are you asking all this? Amanda asked curiously. I have just graduated from medical school and I am writing my dissertation on back injuries. Can I describe your case in my work and, if possible, try to help you? Of course, I'm all for it, but it's unlikely that you'll be able to do anything, replied the girl, who didn't really believe that she would be able to get back on her feet. You're wrong. All the signs confirm that you haven't lost sensation and your nervous system is functioning properly. If it's just the muscles and bones, it's treatable and you'll probably be running and jumping in a couple of years, John replied, thinking that she could be helped. Hey, that would be great, but it sounds too fantastic right now. What hospital are you being treated at? In the Central City Hospital. Why? Amanda asked, not understanding why he needed such information. Just curious, John answered, deciding not to tell the girl all the secrets of his plans. After talking a little more and drinking tea, father and son left the girl, realizing that she needed rest. On the way home, Alexander tried to ask John about the impression Amanda had left on him and whether it was realistic to help her, but the guy was too focused and thoughtful, so he ignored his father without answering anything specific. The next morning, as soon as his father left for work, John went to the Central Hospital to meet and talk to the girl's attending physician. Hello. Can you tell me where I can see Amanda's medical history? John asked at the reception desk. Good morning. I'm sorry, but such information can only be disclosed by the attending physician, replied the nurse, realizing that this is confidential information. Well, can I ask who her doctor is? Yes, of course. Just a moment. Ethan is treating the patient. Thank you very much, John replied and went to the surgical department, found the man's office and knocked on his door. Dad, come in, came a voice from behind the door. Good morning. My name is John, and I'd like to ask you about a patient. Hi, have a seat. I'm sorry, but I don't remember a patient with that last name. I'm interested in Amanda's medical history, John replied. I'm sorry. Who are you? Such information is hidden from outsiders, and only relatives can find out all the details. Unfortunately, I am not directly related to her, but I need to know all the details of her illness. I'm currently interning with Melvin, and I'm interested in this case. Melvin? The one who is the luminary of national medicine? Ethan asked in surprise, knowing how demanding the surgeon was. Yes, exactly. We are interested in this case, and we would like to examine it in more detail. John lied a little, taking advantage of the familiarity with his supervisor and his big name. In that case, no problem. The girl's doctor hastily changed his mind and handed it to John. Having familiarized himself with the certificates, scans, and other data, the guy made conclusions which he did not share. Leaving the doctor's office, he called his mentor and told him that he had a very interesting case that he would like to talk to him about. A couple of days later, John returned to the capital and, without wasting a minute, went to his office to meet with the professor and discuss Amanda's diagnosis. Hello, Melvin. Oh, John, hello. You're back already? Yeah, I really wanted to talk to you about the girl I told you about on the cell phone. Yeah, I remember. So what happened to her? A couple of years ago, she was in a car accident that left her paralyzed. She's had 2 surgeries, several courses of massage and acupuncture, but none of it has worked. The girl has a nervous system response and she can feel her legs, but despite that, she can't move them. Yeah, that's kind of weird, the doctor noted, realizing that in most cases that would be enough. That's exactly what we're talking about. I realize that you are very busy, but as a practicing surgeon with a lot of experience, you have more knowledge than I do, and I have no doubt that you will be able to help. Perhaps you've seen a case like this and could get her back on her feet. I am interested in this case, and I am ready to help. But for a clearer picture, I need x-rays for the whole period, as well as medical records, complete treatment history, and recent tests to draw any conclusions. Maybe you can help me with that. I've spoken to Amanda's doctor. He knows you well and respects you, so I'm sure he'll listen to your opinion. Maybe you can arrange with him to arrange Amanda's move to our hospital. John asked, realizing that his request was rather impudent. I take it you have a thing for this girl, Melvin asked, noticing that his ward was nervous. Well, I do, John admitted, a little embarrassed. Okay, I'll help and call her doctor, but you need to warn Amanda and talk to her about it. Okay, thank you very much, the guy replied, and, summarizing the conversation with his supervisor, left his office. Once outside, he decided to call Elizabeth to warn her about his initiative. Hello, Elizabeth. I hope I'm not interrupting you. Hello, John. No, I'm on break right now, the old lady answered. That's wonderful. I don't know how you'll react, but I told my supervisor about Amanda's problems. Not only is he interested in her case, but he wants to see her in the capital to run more tests and solve Amanda's problem. Are you serious? And how much will it cost? It's completely free for you. You just need to talk to your granddaughter and prepare her for the move. Okay, I'll talk to Amanda. Thank you very much. You are a wonderful person, the grandmother replied with gratitude in her voice, and having finished her shift, went home to talk to her granddaughter and tell her that John had decided to help her and had found an opportunity to do so in the capital. Meanwhile, Melvin called Etan Vladimirovich to discuss his patient with him. Hi, is this Ethan? Hello. Yes. Who am I speaking to? This is Melvin, the man introduced himself. Unexpected. What can I do for you? Ethan asked, shocked by the call of a famous surgeon. You're treating a young woman after a car accident. I take it this is Amanda? The doctor asked, remembering a recent conversation with Melvin's ward. Yes, that's correct. Could you provide medical transportation to transport the girl and hand over all her treatment records for the last 2 years? Yes, of course. Everything will be ready as soon as possible, Ethan replied, agreeing to help with whatever the esteemed Melvin asked him to do. Several days passed. During this period, the girl's doctor prepared her documents and provided transportation for Amanda's transportation. At the same time, Elizabeth talked to her granddaughter and told her about John's scheme. At first, Amanda didn't want to hear about the trip to the capital, as she didn't want to inconvenience a guy she didn't know. But when she realized that he really wanted to help her, she agreed. Besides, the girl was encouraged that she had a chance to get back on her feet and live her old life. A week later, an ambulance brought Amanda to the Metropolitan Medical Center. Good afternoon, Amanda. Can I see you? Asked Dr. Melvin, who had admitted her to his room and visited her to get to know her. Hello. Yes, of course. Come in, Amanda replied politely, settling into her new room. My name is Melvin. I'm your new doctor. How are you settling in here? Is everything comfortable and convenient? Yes, I like it here very much, Amanda admitted. I'm happy about that. John is very worried about your condition. He told me everything in detail. So if you don't mind, we'll get right down to business. You'll need to undergo a thorough examination before we can draw any conclusions. Okay, I'm ready for everything, the girl replied with a smile on her face. Looking at his ward, Melvin understood the guy, because in front of him lay a charming blonde beauty with bright green eyes and large eyelashes, mesmerizing with their smooth movement. Soon the doctor, having received all the results and carefully studied them, he realized that the girl needed another difficult operation, which he will be personally engaged in. Having called John and invited him to his office, Melvin decided to talk to his ward and tell him about his thoughts and plan of action. Hello, you wanted to see me? Yes, John, have a seat. I talked to Amanda, ran all the necessary tests. Can she be helped? Yes, I can help her. And what's more, you have a chance to finish your dissertation early as my assistant. Are you ready to help Amanda and do everything you can to get her back on her feet? The doctor asked, realizing that this was the best test of his professional aptitude. Yes, I will do everything in my power, John replied, realizing that he simply had no margin for error. The day of the surgery was set. A couple weeks passed. The medical staff prepared Amanda for surgery. John had visited the girl shortly before and told her that he would be directly involved in the process. Surprisingly, Amanda was pleased with this news because she completely trusted the guy and does not doubt his abilities. Having received a considerable charge of motivation, John helps Melvin to operate on the girl and does everything that the experienced surgeon says. A few hours later, the men go into the residence room for tea and a break, as they've done all they can and more. What do you think, colleague? Melvin asked with a smile on his face. I think we did a great job, John replied, making himself and his supervisor a cup of strong coffee. I agree with you. I think we did a top-notch operation, and now I have no doubt that I will have a worthy successor, Melvin replied, openly praising the intern for his efforts. Thank you. I hope you are right, replied the boy. He decided to share the happy news and called Elizabeth. Hello, John. How is Amanda? The old lady immediately asked, worried about her granddaughter. Hello, Elizabeth. I'm just calling to let you know that we just had the operation and it was a success. Oh my God, that's just wonderful. Do I need to come over? The old lady asked, realizing that her granddaughter needed her. Don't worry, we're fine. Amanda is under my personal care, so there is no need to take off, especially since the road is not close and it is too hard for your age. I'll call you, and soon Amanda will be able to call you. Okay, thank you so much. If you need anything, you call right away, Grandma said, and hanging up the phone, trying not to distract John from his work. After making another phone call, John dialed his father to tell him that the operation had been a success. At the same time, he had a completely different topic to dialogue with his father, as the surgery wasn't exactly free and needed to be paid for. Deciding not to initiate the poor old lady into this, Alexander personally paid for the operation, transferring the entire amount to the account of the medical center. Having learned that Amanda came out of anesthesia, John decided to visit the girl to talk to her first. "Hi, how are you feeling?" he asked, looking into the girl's room. "Hi, I'm fine, but I'm not thinking straight," Amanda replied. "That's okay. It happens after anesthesia. I can tell you that the operation was a success. Of course I can't and won't disclose all the details. The professor will tell you about it tomorrow, but I wanted to be the first to bring you this good news," John said, taking the girl's hand. "Thank you. I had no doubt that you would help me and everything would be fine." "You are a wonderful person, and I don't know what I would have done without you," Amanda replied with a smile on her face, thanking the guy. "Okay, I won't interrupt you. I still have a lot of work to do." "I'll come see you later," he replied, embarrassed, and jumped up abruptly and ran out of the room. When he closed the door, John couldn't take a step out of the room because he wanted to go back in, but he realized how inappropriate it was. After standing like that for a few more minutes, he realized that he was interested in Amanda, not only from a professional point of view, but also as a charming girl with whom it was pleasant not only to talk, but also to be quiet, not afraid to admit it to himself. John finally realized that he had fallen in love with Amanda, but how to tell her about it, the guy has no idea. The next morning, Amanda is visited by Melvin to tell her about yesterday's surgery. "Hello, Amanda. How are you feeling?" "Hello, doctor. Much better. Just a little backache." "Don't worry. It's natural after such a difficult surgery." "I guess John came by and told you that everything went well," Melvin suggested. "Yes, he came by last night." "I see. In that case, I won't repeat myself. You should rest for now, and in a few days we will have a new examination to evaluate the results of the surgery and plan your further treatment," the doctor replied, and left the room without taking time from the girl and continued his rounds. A week later, Amanda took all the tests and underwent a second examination. After checking the data, Melvin visited the girl again and informed her that she was on the mend and he had no more doubts that she would soon be back on her feet. After a few more restorative treatments, Melvin left the girl in the hospital for a couple more weeks. Soon the treatment came to an end and the doctor discharged the girl. John, meeting with Melvin, leaves for a few days to take the girl home. Hearing the doorbell, Elizabeth hurries into the hallway and meets her granddaughter on the doorstep. Seeing that the girl is sitting in a wheelchair, the grandmother cannot hold back tears. "God, Amanda, you are sitting," joyfully shouted Elizabeth, starting to hug and kiss her granddaughter. "Yes, this is the first progress we have made just before discharge," Amanda joyfully reported. "Believe me, this is just the beginning," John encouraged Amanda and Elizabeth with his words. "Thank you. You do so much for us," replied the old lady, starting to hug John as well. "You don't have to thank me. I do what I have to do by profession and vocation," modestly replied the guy, afraid to admit that he has feelings for the girl. "Will you come over for tea?" Amanda asked, inviting the guy to the table. "Unfortunately, I can't. I promised to meet my father. I'll drop by tomorrow morning if you don't mind." "Of course I don't mind. I'm at home, so I'm free for you anytime," replied Amanda with a smile, who was also able to admit to herself that she felt sympathy and attraction for the guy. A few days later, John returned to the capital for an early defense of his thesis. Having completed his internship with honors and having received positive feedback from his supervisor, John decided to be a little cheeky to ask Melvin if he could fulfill another request. Melvin had a lot of respect and love for John, as he was his best student ever, so he agreed to whatever he wanted, as long as it was within reason. "Could you help me get a job in my hometown? I'd like to personally handle Amanda's rehabilitation and see it through." "Yeah, that's what I figured. Or did you just like the girl very much? The doctor asked with a smile on his face, realizing that it was not only a matter of duty and professionalism. Well, not without that, John answered modestly, realizing that his feelings were easily read and literally written on his face. Well, I'll try to help you, Melvin said, and keeping his word made sure John was sent back to his hometown. A couple of weeks later, after handing in the keys to the rented apartment and packing all his things, John returned to his hometown, pleasing not only Amanda, but also his father. The next morning, he went to the hospital to get a job. When he met Ethan in the hallway, John said he had something to talk to him about and asked him to come into his office. I have completed my internship and will be working for you. I hope you don't mind, John asked. Do I mind having the man who ran the joint operation with Melvin working for me? Are you kidding? Ethan replied with a smile, realizing that he had got a valuable person. Asking one of the nurses to make coffee, the man talked to his new ward and offered him the position of his deputy. Moreover, if you do well in your duties, you can take my place in a couple of years, since I'm going to retire anyway. All right, I'll be glad to work under your supervision, but I just wanted to remind you that I'll be managing Amanda after the surgery, since I'm her new attending physician and I have to help her recover. No problem. I'm sure you'll do well. After talking to the doctor and getting a job at the Central Hospital, John went to his father's restaurant to tell him about it. Knocking on the office door, the boy heard a disgruntled voice and, looking into the room, saw a smoking man with a blackened expression of sadness. Hey, Dad. Something wrong? You look a little glum, John said, sitting down in the chair next to his father. Oh, just some minor problems at work. Do not pay attention to me, better tell me how you were doing. Were you in the hospital? Asked his father, not wanting to talk about minor problems in business. Yes, everything is fine. I got a job. Ethan offered me the position of his assistant with the possibility of further growth. Oh, congratulations, that's great. What are your plans for the next few days? Alexander asked. Well, today I was planning to rest. And in a couple of days, I would like to visit Amanda to check on her well-being and to see how she is recovering. Is this just for fun or for work? For work, of course, John answered, shy to talk about his affection for the girl. There's so few nurses in the hospital. You're not a nurse or a doctor on duty, but an assistant to the head of the surgical department? His father wondered. Well, I'm Amanda's attending physician. Besides, there's a personal reason, the boy replied, embarrassed. Did you fall in love? Alexander asked with a smile on his face, sharply glowing with happiness like a Christmas garland. I like her very much, it's true. Besides, I would like to personally put her on her feet, to bring the matter to an end, and at the same time try to win her sympathy. I understand you. Go ahead, supported the aspiration of his son's father. A few days later, having settled into his new workplace and having done all the work ahead of time, John asked Ethan to visit his ward a little earlier. On his way to visit her, he went to the store and bought some cookies for tea to cheer her up and distract her from thoughts of the recent surgery and the recovery process. After ringing the doorbell and meeting his grandmother, John gave the shopping bag to her and, having washed his hands, went to Amanda's bedroom. Hello, how are you feeling? Hi, I'm fine. What are you doing in town? I guess you came to visit your father, the girl asked. No, I came to see you, John answered, and immediately realized that he had spoken. What do you mean? Amanda asked in surprise, not expecting such an answer. Well, I mean that I got a job here at the Central Hospital, and you are my patient, so I will visit you regularly and often appear at your house. I hope you don't mind. No, I'm very glad, admitted the girl, who enjoyed John's company. After checking the girl's condition, the guy did not linger and went home. In the evening, he could not sleep for a long time and, continuing to study medical literature, developed individual physical training, allowing to improve the condition of muscles and gradually prepare them for increased loads. Visiting 3 times a week. After work, John is working on Amanda's rehabilitation and post-operative recovery. Gradually, he increases physical loads and carefully monitors how the girl copes with his tasks. A special course of individual training, which Amanda unquestioningly adheres to, gives its fruits because the girl's condition continues to improve. On one such day, the grandmother returns from work and, hearing that John is still at their house, goes to the kitchen to prepare dinner and bake homemade pies. Noticing that the guy is about to leave, Elizabeth went out into the hallway and did not let him in, inviting him to the table. Realizing that it wasn't polite to refuse, John agreed. Besides, it would allow him to spend some more time with Amanda. God, this is delicious, John noted with delight as he tasted one of the pies. You haven't tasted Amanda's cooking. She learned it all from me, Grandma said, praising her granddaughter. Yes, but I haven't stood at the stove for almost 3 years, Amanda replied, doubting her cooking skills. When you get married, you'll quickly remember, the old lady said, and she noticed how Amanda and John were embarrassed and then blushed like ripe tomatoes. I think it's too soon to talk about it. I'd have to get on my feet before I could look for someone to marry, Amanda replied, realizing that she shouldn't rush things. What is there to look for? The fiancé is sitting right next to me, replied her grandmother jokingly, not realizing that they really have feelings for each other. I should probably go, John said, embarrassed. Stay some more, Grandma is joking, replied Amanda, and taking the guy's hand, tried to stop him. Okay, I'll stay, but not for long, as I have to go to work early. I must admit I feel very cozy and warm at your place. It's been a long time since I felt in such a nice home atmosphere. Thank you. We are very pleased, said the grandmother, and, continuing to scrutinize the couple and their reactions, guessed that John was partial to her granddaughter. The woman is genuinely pleased about this and would be happy with such a union, but decides she shouldn't talk about it, as she has embarrassed both of them enough as it is. 3 months later, with John's constant support, Amanda begins to take her first steps around her room, which pleases not only her attending physician, but also Elizabeth, who has entered the room. Deciding not to interfere with the lessons, the grandmother went to the kitchen, and the girl continued to train, relearning to walk. After walking a few meters, Amanda felt weakness in her legs and almost fell down, but John picked her up in time, putting his arm around her waist. Amanda was very embarrassed, but she was very happy and felt safe in John's arms, and realized that he was there for her. You're doing great, the guy said, praising the girl. Thank you so much. It's all thanks to you. Come on, I didn't do anything special. It's your work and your successes. I have nothing to do with them. If it wasn't for you, none of this would happen. So don't be modest. Okay, but then congratulations to you too, because today you did more than we planned. If it goes like this, I'll take you for a walk in the park in a month. Promise. Yes. But don't forget that you have to work hard and not feel sorry for yourself, John replied, explaining that it wasn't as easy as it might seem at first glance. Now I have extra motivation, so I promise that in a month I'll be good. I don't promise to run, but I will walk with confidence, Amanda stated firmly, not allowing her words to be doubted. Having kept her promise and worked hard on herself, the girl began to walk without fear of falling down on the ground. Realizing that he must keep his word, John visits Amanda after work and invites her for a walk in the park. After an hour-long walk, the girl felt a slight pain in her legs, as she's not used to walking a lot yet. Realizing that she needs a rest, John suggests having dinner at his father's restaurant, since it's a few steps away from their park. Amanda was embarrassed at first and refused, as she hadn't been to such places for a long time and wasn't dressed for it. Don't worry, they won't kick us out, John replied with a smile, realizing that the restaurant administrator was the girl's neighbor, and the owner was his father. That's right, Amanda agreed with a smile, and accepted the young man's invitation. After ordering a few dishes, the couple continued their sweet conversation, both about the girl's health and treatment, and about more distant things. At some point, John realized that he could no longer hide his sympathy and decided to act more openly. You know, We haven't known each other that long, but I really enjoy spending time with you. I'm very glad that we could finally go for a walk, and I hope that this meeting was not the last one. I hope we can go to the park again, Amanda replied. I'm probably going to do something stupid, but I better ask you straight out. Do you want to go out with me? John asked, looking the girl straight in her bright green eyes. Yes. I've been waiting for those words from you for a long time. Amanda answered with a smile and admitted that she also felt sympathy for the guy. Hearing this, John shouted with joy, forgetting that he was in a public place, and jumped up from his seat and went to the girl to kiss her passionately. Hearing some noise in the hall, Alexander came out of his office and saw what was happening. Deciding not to disturb, he waited for a few minutes and then came to the table to greet the dear guests. Good evening, my dears. It's a pleasure to have you in my restaurant. Amanda, I must admit that you have changed a lot since the last time I saw you. Thank you, I know. It's all thanks to your son, replied the girl, not letting go of John's hand. I am very happy for you, my dear, said Alexander, kissing Amanda on the cheek and shaking his son's hand, congratulating him on the wonderful choice of his second half. Soon the news that they had decided to start dating was also learned by their grandmother, who was equally happy to receive the news. A year later, Amanda and John got married, playing a lavish wedding to which they invited all of John's colleagues, Amanda's class teacher, as well as Professor Melvin, who was the guest of honor at the celebration. The wedding was played at Alexander's restaurant. Elizabeth was very happy to have her co-workers, whom she had managed to become friends with, by her side on this day. The old lady sat and wiped her tears. For the first time in the last few years, they were tears of happiness. She realized that with a husband like John by her side, her Amanda would find happiness. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Subscribe to the channel. Like it, write comments if you like the story, and see you on the channel.